There's a lot of ugly people in it, which kind of blows. Like TV ugly. Like,
Yeah, that's my issue with real life.
no, I was having this conversation yesterday. I like horror movies are quite scary, but everyone's really hot in them. So you're like, this isn't real. This can't be real. Like, there's no room in real life where everyone looks like Jennifer Connelly. This is such nonsense. When everyone looks real and kind of ugly, first of all, this isn't escapism anymore. Show me the hot people. But secondly, It's just a bit more realistic now. I feel like I might be in danger.
Yeah, it's frustrating when the people who die have a great personality. And I don't have to worry about that when they're good looking. It's exactly why I liked Inside Out. It's because I knew what everybody was. Because they were named after the emotion they had.
It's very Silent Hill. Even the monsters you see are not the monsters that you think they are. Everything's coming together and why. So you're having to resort to those type of measures because you're masking a problem that's much bigger than the actual issue.
I feel like you're calling me out really personally right now. You're having to do this because you're masking a problem. Shut up.
You're a problem. Well,
yeah, take that, you hippie.
Before we begin, the Gamers Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AMKomnenos, Banana and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome to yet another episode of the Gamers Advocate podcast. We are joined with Banana Hammock Republic. Yay! AMKomnenos, yay! And myself, Legion. And we are going to be going over the Game Award nominees. Now, we realize this might get published after the show has already occurred, but we wanted to be on record of saying who we kind of felt might win these categories. And, we're just going to banter a little bit, make a little episode about it, maybe even discuss some of the subjects we talked about last year at this time of the year, where we said, do the Game Awards even matter? And we're kind of on record of putting our 2 cents out there, but we might throw some more in there. Another 2 cents. Make it 4 cents.
Let's go rent to pay.
I don't remember last year them starting the vote card with Game of the Year. I thought it was like at the very end. They kind of threw me when I saw it. I was like, Game of the Year right off the bat?
It does feel like something you should build up to, doesn't it? And also to like have that chance to reflect on what you're thinking the entire time as you go through a category and think, oh, I did have great music. Oh, that did have a great narrative, whatever it might be. And then building this sort of mental scorecard as you go through, and then ultimately with, well, when I really think about it, it's got to be ...
Well, I think clearly this year they've decided they're building up to the best esports team, which is the category everyone cares most about.
That's what I've given my thought to. Thought singular.
Since they started off with Game of the Year, I was a bit confused because, and this is the most I'm going to say about it, but the Ghost of Yotai was in almost every major category except Game of the Year. And I couldn't understand that. I was like, wait a minute. So you're going to have it for potential best game direction, best RPG or action, or best art. It was in so many, music as well. I think she was nominated also or they were nominated for the voice actor. It was in so many categories, but not Game of the Year. How?
I think the answer is quite straightforward, but it is one where it does boggle the mind a little. The answer is Donkey Kong Bonanza's in there. And that doesn't really pop up in many categories beyond multiplayer, but it's clearly deemed to be that good a game at what it does, that it deserves to be in the overall category as well, which is odd. It does feel strange, and I think you're right that it's, when you look at the other way round, if you built up to Game of the Year, that would have felt very jarring to suddenly see, hold on, where's this game that I've voted for 6 times, and I can't do it here?
Yeah, it did make sense to me in many regards. It's like not like it's going to water down the votes,
So this year, the nominees for Game of the Year are Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight, Silksong, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
It's a pretty good year. Like when you look at top games, that's a pretty good year. I think we'll look back on that one very fondly.
Yeah, and then games that we had mentioned like Ghost of Yotei and Dispatch aren't even on there. So it was a good year. Good year for gaming.
Yeah. Well, I guess
I'm trying to make Dispatch happen, Legion.
I guess
I'm not the only one who's saying that. I mean, it's like, where is Dispatch in all this?
No, one of my friends said it too. So I think I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna just put mine out there. I think there's 3 here that I would have been quite closely tied between, but number 1 for me would be Death Stranding 2 on the beach, which you might find doesn't win as many of my individual categories as you'd expect. But when I look at just which game I had the most fun with, which game I enjoyed the most, which game I think is the most interesting of the bunch, Death Stranding 2 on the beach.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to lean that way. For me, I think overall, I enjoyed a lot of the games in this category, but I think the overall experience that I had with Claire was just the best of this year. So for me, Claire is the winner in this category, but I would kind of like to be wrong. I feel like there's enough quality in the other games in this category that if something else wins, it would be a nice surprise as opposed to like a what the hell were they thinking kind of situation.
Well, the good news for you is that except for Baldur's Gate 3, I've been wrong in every year for best game of the year. And I'm saying Expedition 33, so you might have your wish come true.
Oh, perfect.
Does anyone
My wish is for Legion to be wrong, so this works out great.
Does anyone else secretly think Hades might take it? I feel that's the game that I have seen get the most praise alongside Expedition 33. If it's not one of those two, I'll be surprised. I don't think Death Stranding will win. I want Death Stranding to win. I think it's between Claire and probably Hades.
It's probably between Death Stranding and Claire. I don't know that while Hades was great, I don't know that there was enough there for me to consider it in this category, but not everybody thinks the way I do.
Yeah. Could I go from Hades to Hades 2 or Silksong from Hollow Knight? Yeah, pretty easily. Even though the mechanics are a little different. I mean, they're intrinsically the same. However, Death Stranding 2 doesn't take any shortcuts with that. If you take Death Stranding and then apply everything you know to Death Stranding 2, there's a lot of features that they made a little bit more welcoming to new players, and there's some quality of life features. And the story definitely has evolved. The easiest thing Kojima could have done was just say, this is part 2. Mm-hmm. But they definitely didn't do that. So I definitely think it hits head and shoulders because of more of the effort and the storytelling and all those little things that they couldn't just copy paste from Death Stranding 1 make it a superior game to either Hades or Silksong. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my line of thought for Hades and Silksong as well. Is they're both great games, and I think they're both excellent sequels to previous entries in that series. But I don't think there's enough independent development in those. I don't think there's enough new content in either of those games that it doesn't feel like a continuation of the previous game. And while the previous game was excellent, I don't know that it's. I personally like the idea of rewarding just kind of doing a lot of the same thing. But the quality is there. So like they definitely could have screwed up both of those games and they didn't. And I think like, I don't want it to be misconstrued that I think they're bad games in any way. It's just for what I think the greatest game of the year is. I don't think either of those two did everything that Claire did or everything that Death Stranding 2 did.
Well, I think maybe just one last tiny thought on that is it could be interesting just to notice how many of these are sequels this year, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing. But it's interesting to see Kingdom Come in there, Hades, Hollow Knight, Death Stranding, Donkey Kong, I guess. We could probably put it in that family. It's very much from an established series. It's interesting to see how little there is in terms of new IP, which I don't see as necessarily a bad thing. but it might make this year stand out a little bit when we look back.
Yeah, and it's very difficult on especially an RPG, to you always want to like really focus on what you're doing so that way you can push along the pace. We talked about that with Mass Effect 3 and the pacing, but Claire did a really good job of even some of the side content that you're doing, goofy as they are, the mini games, the little side story, the little side lore, when you find out about like certain other expeditions that have its own deep lore. I mean, if you just take the time and read some of them, I'm not going to mention any spoilers or anything, but there's one in particular that is like, man, this is one of the best lore reads I've ever read, period. And they didn't have to do that. They just threw it in there because it created more of a layering for the story. Just the love of the game.
And I think that's kind of what I was vaguely getting at in my rambling, is that I think Claire and Death Stranding 2 did a lot more in terms of like what I think of as in a complete game. So there is some lore in Silksong. Hades has lore, but it's kind of like building off of existing lore that we're all relatively familiar with. I don't think there was as much new creativity in the entirety of the game for each of those as there was in Claire and Death Stranding. But again, there was creativity. They're both excellent games. They're just not my pick for top in across all categories. So,
yeah. Shall we move on to category 2?
So the next category is what? Game direction? Is that the next one?
Best game direction. And the nominees are Clear Obscure Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Ghost of Yotei, Hades 2, and Split Fiction.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I was considering Split Fiction for that one. When I think of game direction, I'm really thinking of like the pacing. How are you packaging this? How are you actually presenting this as a game to everyone? And I don't think Sucker Punch did anything majorly different with Ghost of Tsushima compared to Yotei, but Yotei is so solid. It's so good. A lot of the things that they made have not gotten right with Tsushima, they got right with Yotei. And I really wish it was on PC so I could play it. But I've seen so much of it. I'm like, man, I really wish that was in Tsushima, but it suffers from it's an RPG with a lot of length, and it's, has some girth to it. So it's kind of hard to say, well, yeah, you can go this way, you can go that way. Sure. But I mean, from the tutorials to the story, like I said, to the pacing and the overall anxiety you have from being an individual who's constantly in an environment who's repressed and not given enough credence or whatever, and then you have to suffer with yourself too at the same time. It's constantly in the game. It's always there. So I really think from a game direction, I had to say Yotei.
Hold on, for me, start that by saying it was going to be Split Fiction.
Well, that's why, because I thought that also was going in that way, but I just thought,
gotcha.
As a whole,
for me, I picked Death Stranding. I feel like Split Fiction is probably the one I know the least about in this category. But I think all of the other games in this category, like this was probably one of the tightest categories for me. I think it's really tough to evaluate, particularly game direction from an outside point of view. But as far as just kind of the overall storytelling that was done in these games, and pacing is a huge part of that, I think Death Stranding 2 leaves a lot of it in your hands as far as the pacing, and yet still maintains solid pacing, which is a really, really challenging way to do anything, I think, is to give your players control and yet not give them enough control to ruin it.
Yeah. I'm going to add in on best game direction. This is one of the few categories I also have Death Stranding 2 winning in. I think that it's a category that's almost made for someone like Kojima. And when I looked at awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design, I still think, even though it's a sequel, it's a very, very unique style of game that people really aren't developing. And it's a game where its development is, I think, good for gaming as a whole. To have someone coming in, making essentially a new style of game, or a very, very newly developed style of game. So Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, for me, takes best game direction. I had pretty much any of these games could have won it, to my mind. The only one that I wouldn't have said was Split Fiction, but it's from a lack of experience playing it rather than anything else. The others I'm familiar with, Split Fiction, not so much.
I also think there's small issue with Split Fiction in that the announcements that I've seen around that game and the personality of, I guess it's the CEO of Hazelight, they just really turned me off of caring. Like something about the way that game was marketed to me just made me think like, I wanted to play this and now I'm not sure.
That's what I call the Kingdom Come Deliverance effect. I had that with Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 when I was just thinking, please, someone get this director off of Twitter. Please just get him off there. And there will be so much more here to enjoy. Shall we jump on to Best Narrative?
So for Best Narrative, the nominees are Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, On the Beach, Ghosts of Yotei, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and Silent Hill F.
Well, there's one here that I can't opine on, which is Silent Hill F. But for me, this was actually relatively simple. I am going for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I think it's got the narrative that spoke most to me. I think there's a few big missteps in it, especially towards the end, but they don't come anywhere close to taking away from the value of the narrative experience as a whole. So for me, this is one category which I would like to think is, for me at least, is pretty sewn up. Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
So I think without giving spoilers for any of the games in this category, I personally did not enjoy the narrative of Silent Hill F overall. I think there are definitely moments where it really hits and moments where it really let me down. But overall, I was pretty disappointed with the storytelling in that, and particularly the ending. So that one was kind of outside my realm of consideration for this. I don't know Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 particularly well, but of the three remaining, again, this is another tight category. I went with Clair Obscur. I think my experience with that game was just so much investment in the story, so much constantly wondering what's going to happen next, constantly wanting to dig into the characters and wanting to learn like the world that everything was happening in. They did just such a great job of keeping me engaged that it's really tough for me to ignore just what a great experience that game was.
This was a strong group. I don't have any issues with any one of these games. There's strong narrative for what they're doing in each one of them. As a Silent Hill player, I totally appreciated what they were doing with Silent Hill, with their narrative. And I understand where Banana's concerns are, and they're totally legitimate. We're not going to get into spoilers or anything. But what they were saying on the end game, what you see there, is not necessarily reflective of what they were trying to actually say. And so I think there's a lot of ties to old games that make it a Silent Hill game. But that being said, things like Ghost of Yotei, another easy thing that they could have done is go with the let's play into the gamers, the mass appeal. Let's make her this beautifully aesthetic individual and how she whatever. And it was often criticized, saying, see, this is what woke media wants. They want this type of character.
Can
this
we
type.
not?
Yeah, but that's what there was.
Can we not bring that corner of Twitter into this, please?
That was the narrative before the game came out. And that was a strong
amongst
narrative.
a couple of dweebs. Let's be real.
But it was often even canceled before it even came out as a game. But what I'm saying is that the developer could have very easily leaned into the marketing for that by building that type of character, but they didn't.
Yeah, they could have fallen into the trap of trying to appeal to that loud minor audience who was complaining about the wokeness of the game, and I'm happy they didn't. But that in and of itself is not award winning.
No. But as a narrative,
if it
when you're
would,
telling,
it would be a contribution to best game direction. To my mind, it's holding on to your vision.
they didn't lose track of that, is what I'm saying. So that was also a good one. But I did go with Claire because, like I said, the lore got me. They really, really thought about this. And like you said, there are some, as you come to the end, it's like a marathon. You're getting really tired and you're struggling toward the end. You're not finishing strong, but you are going to finish. And I think there was a lot of things within the lore that were just done so well. I kind of brought up the whole, like, there could be a whole game on a couple of those expedition lore books, an entire game, because they were so well thought out and how they tied into the current expedition, and it's just done so really well. And so from a narrative, piece to piece to piece, act to act to act, I couldn't disagree with Claire.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in global agreement, aren't we? For me, it was a slightly different reasoning to you. I adored the lore. I thought the world felt wonderful, but I really loved the character interactions more than anything else. It was the character moments that to me felt wonderful. It was the development, particularly of the main cast, let's say the party, just directly. There's some extra characters too, like our mysterious man, for example. But the development of the party, I just thought was so interesting the entire time that I was looking forward. It was like playing Dragon Age Origins again. I wanted to go back to camp and see, is there new dialogue? Is there something new? And that was a very, very beautiful thing to have while playing this game that I don't find I always get that often anymore. So yeah, we're in agreement. Claire Obscure for narrative.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to take next category?
We're all wrong.
Yay! Best art direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in design and animation. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Ghost of Yotei, Hades 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. Should I do that again without that fucking ambulance going by?
No. For me, this is a no-brainer. This is as hard as some of the other prior categories were. This is not hard for me at all. This is Death Stranding 2. It's not even close. Not even close. They are by far head and shoulders from an art direction standpoint. Some of the best lighting I've ever seen in any game is in Death Stranding. And it's done not just oh, hey, look, we have great lighting, great ray tracing or whatever. It's just done well for each scene, like a movie, which is what Kojima wants. And if you're going to frame your game like a movie, you're going to have to play all the parts to it. It's done well. Just fantastic. 10 out of 10.
So interesting. I did not expect that. Wow. What you got, Banana?
I could not disagree with Legion more. No, I agree.
I was going to wipe away that tear.
I do agree that the technical achievement in Death Stranding is exceptional, but my personal preference in categories like these is not the technical award. For me, this is the creative and the artistic application. So in Death Stranding, understanding real world lighting and integrating it into the game does not feel like an artistic endeavor. It feels very calculated and dry. And I'm an engineer. I can do that. That's something I feel like I could probably put together and support. I don't think of myself as artistic in that capacity. So I did actually end up voting for Hades 2 because I feel like the art style in Hades 2 is exceptional. I think their portrayal of a lot of established characters in Greek mythology is very creative. It's very interesting and engaging. And I think the way that game is portrayed and presented is wonderful. And I think the art style is a huge part of what makes that game appealing.
And you're not wrong, Banana. And I'm before you start, you're not wrong, Banana. I totally agree with what you're saying. It's just, I think it becomes a bias of that type of art, because for me, Death Must Die is a better art style than Hades, and it's the same thing. It's the gods. Some of them are very similar, the same gods, just presented very differently. And that's kind of why I was like, yeah, I totally get your side of it, totally. But that's why I can't lean in that way, because also, I've seen it in a better I've seen it in a different game, just done better. So, but yeah, that's just, yeah.
Well, to be annoying, I split it in my head into two separate categories. There was creative achievement and technical achievement. And I thought Death Stranding, technical achievement, I would give it to that instantly. The performance they got out of that game with how incredible it looks. The first moments playing that game when you suddenly realize, wait, I'm not in a cutscene anymore. This is me. Wow. Creative, I was going to go to Clair Obscur because I thought it's just the most interesting looking of the worlds. Death Stranding, there are things within it that are very interesting, but the bulk of the world ultimately is it's this rugged South American and Australian backdrop. It's landscape mostly, and then you have these really beautiful moments with individual enemies and the world when it takes on its weirder forms. Okay, fine. And I thought the game that combined them was Hades 2, which is what I ultimately went for in the end. And it's because I think just to get as much out of as small a package as they did is incredible. So for technical achievement, I had it. And I've just found that the design of Hades 1 and Hades 2, beautiful, incredible, interesting. And there are games that do similar things, but I don't think there's any other games that actually do what it does. So I would have had it up there for having uniqueness and creativity as well. So for me, there was the three games, but the one that I thought put them both together was Hades 2.
Yeah, I definitely think in my rambling, again, I did not give Claire the recognition it deserved. And I do completely agree. I think they did a very, very impressive job with the creativity of this very alien world in Claire. And it is a huge part of the experience of that game is just kind of exploring this really imaginative world and meeting characters that are very different from anything we've ever seen before. And it is a wonderful experience, but I think Hades 2 in my mind just edged out Claire in this category, particularly because these are characters that feel somewhat familiar, and yet their presentation in Hades 2 is so new and interesting that it's, I feel like, a very difficult challenge to take something we're all familiar with and make it new.
Of course, Dispatch Not's on here, but if it was, it would take it for me. But I hope of all the categories that I'm right about, I hope I'm most right about this one.
Interesting.
I really have a strong feeling about Death Stranding in this particular category.
Banana, what we got for the next category?
Best score and music. So for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. Christopher Larkin for Hollow Knight Silksong, Darren Korb for Hades 2, Lorian Testart for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Toma Otawa for Ghost of Yote, and I'm going to mispronounce this. I'm going to guess Vodkid and Ludwig Forsell for Death Stranding 2 on the Beach.
I love that you got the one wrong that you could have got right. It's Woodkid. Yeah.
Woodkid. I was looking at that and I was like, that's not even a name. So like, I'm going to pronounce this the way I would if it were a name, but it's Woodkid apparently.
A friend of my ex, so he probably doesn't like me. Let's talk about how this category, I think, has a clear winner.
Woodkid.
Yeah. Oh, Woodkid. I think this category, for me, has a clear winner. And it does hurt, because I love the soundtrack to Death Stranding. But I lean more in the direction of composed music for these categories. There is an art to licensing music, absolutely. Some of my favorite movie soundtracks, Martin Scorsese very rarely uses composers, if ever. I think Tarantino doesn't either, but I'm not really a Tarantino fan. But they license it because they know of the power of music has. But I think there's something special about creating music for it. So I couldn't consider Death Stranding as highly as I'd like to, despite some amazing moments. For me, it was between Hades 2 and Clair Obscur, and I went with Clair Obscur, which I think is a flawed soundtrack. I think it definitely has issues, but is far and away the best of the soundtracks available here. Like, it's a very, very good. These are small flaws that are nitpicky flaws. Overall, the themes that they develop through the game, incredible. The actual performances, really, really outstanding. The way that they actually do take the operatic tradition of having the themes applied to characters and to the world, and then just modifying those themes and using them to tell stories. I think one of the very final songs is called Une vie à t'aimer, which is A Life to Love You. It plays one of the very final boss fights. incredible. The weaving in of other themes. For me, I can't see anything else taking it. Hades 2, possibly. Anything else, I'd be surprised.
I definitely feel like this is a category where I can't imagine anything other than Claire winning. And that is not to suggest that anything else had a terrible soundtrack. I think Claire's soundtrack, and maybe we're biased because Legion loves to use Claire's soundtrack in the background of our episodes. But I think that's one of those things that I can happily listen to that soundtrack outside of the game and just appreciate it. All of these others are very much, they're tied to the experience of the gameplay, whereas Claire, I can independently appreciate that soundtrack.
I'm just looking back and I find it's interesting how often I've seen this category and thought, I know who's winning this in advance. Last year it was Final Fantasy Rebirth. I couldn't have imagined something else. The year before it was Final Fantasy 16. I couldn't have imagined something else. The year prior it wasn't Elden Ring, which did surprise me. But it just feels like it's one of those categories where often one game really does tend to stand out and you go in thinking, yeah, this is probably going to them. Sorry, Legion, I didn't want to take away from you.
No,
I didn't want to let you tell us what your vote was.
No. Banana's already said it for me because I definitely feel it's very difficult in some of these games because if you can only hear that music for that game, then it's being terribly precise. And when we often think of like movies and their scores, we think of classical movies independently of their scores sometimes. Chariots of Fire, the Jaws theme, we know they're part of that movie, but they're so different on their own that we know them for what they are. And I think Claire does that. No other game in this category does that. It does suffer from time to time because there's certain scenes, where the dancing scene, it's like in Act 2, where the boss fight where everybody's they're kind of more whimsical and stuff, but I kind of expected a more Middle Eastern type sound because of all or like a Persian sound or something. But
Really?
It was still in that French theme, and I was like, I'm not really here, but I love this. I love the area. That was one of my favorite areas in the entire game. But I just
Legion
felt a
doesn't
little
care
pulled.
for the French.
But I felt a little.
We knew this.
But I
There's
felt a little
nothing new.
pulled away a little bit. I was like, well, wait a minute. Are we? If this is like a imagination, if this is like a belief or something, clearly something's going on here. But I don't feel like I'm in this world anymore in a certain way because of the music. That was the only time. But yet, as a whole, I can listen to that soundtrack independently of the game and be okay. Hades, I got to be playing Hades to kind of really get into that. But
Hades is one I can listen to on its own, oddly enough. And it actually, when I was jumping in specifically for this episode, listening to bits of the soundtrack, that was the one where I thought, oh, I'm going to get this again. And it's ended up on a very similar playlist of things like Cyberpunk, which I thought had a wonderful soundtrack. But yeah, I just feel the Clair Obscur soundtrack is a kind of a different level, honestly. And what I really appreciate, actually, is I know the area you're talking about. And I loved that they maintained that feel from the rest of the game. And you had that audio consistency, that sort of consistent musical language going all the way through while still remaining as unique as it was. So yeah, I can't look past Expedition 33 for that. Should I take us on to the next category, which is...
Just really quickly, do we want to get Com to do the intro to this category since he will pronounce everyone's name correctly? Even pronouncing Lorien Testard's name, I feel like I didn't even get that entirely correctly. Toma Okawa, I feel like none of us are going to get correctly.
I think we get a pass on that one, right?
Yeah.
An honesty pass, we tried.
I feel like it, just given the fact that this is the one time we're going to say any French words, having Com deliver it might be the most appropriate way to handle it.
Banana, no. But you see, even if you said it right, you said it wrong because the French. That's not how you say it.
You said it right because you already won. You don't need to get it right. So the next category is Best Audio Design, recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design. And we have Battlefield 6, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. I'm not doing this. Battlefield 6.
I was so frustrated for a second there. I was like, oh, fuck you. Think you're better than me? Just because you're better than me?
The nominations are Battlefield 6, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Ghost of Yotei, and Silent Hill F. Legion, what do you have?
It's very easy to lean into the horror, which is what I did. And I played Silent Hill F, and that audio is great. Now, in Silent Hill F, like other Silent Hill games, there's these little triggers, earworms, that get to you that say, this might be in the area, this could happen. So unlike a lot of other horror games or even horror films, like you start hearing the violins coming, so you know something's coming. It's more of an anticipatory, but it's kind of like saying, you need to kind of prepare it because it may around the corner, it may be down that way if you go this way. We just know it's in this area. But you have to really have your ears on. So it's very important to get the sound designed right. So, I did like the other categories, but it was an easy call for me to say Silent Hill F. It was just tremendous. They did it excellently well.
Yeah, I agree. I picked Silent Hill F. I think everything about that sound design was exceptional. And this is that one category where I always want to make sure I understand like the difference between sound design and just soundtrack. And I think that's probably not something anybody else needs explained to them, but sometimes I can be very stupid. And so for this one, while I actually do really enjoy the soundtrack from Silent Hill F as well, I just think the gameplay sound design and the feeling it creates as you navigate through that world is so perfect for the game.
I feel bad because I can't pick Silent Hill F just from a lack of experience with it. My only experience with the game is through someone else streaming it, and of course the person's volume is a bit higher than the game. The game is all a bit low. I'm getting everything through that. Well, I think they mono-channeled it because it definitely didn't have any wide range. Nothing stood out where I thought, yes. But there is a recognition which I will give it, which is horror has to have its sound right. If horror doesn't have its sound right, it doesn't work. So I can assume its quality is very high, but I can't vote for it. Like Bernard, I make the distinction, like we all do, between narrative and between soundtrack and audio design, and I went with Death Stranding 2 on the Beach for audio design. And it's very similar to Legion's attitude earlier towards, I think it was game direction when we were talking about cinematography. It's the way the audio is used within the game, I think, is done incredibly well. The way of it implying connections with you and people in other worlds, the way it's so tightly designed during the cutscenes, and the development more of sound effects than soundtrack, which I think Death Stranding was the best example of. For me, from the games I've played in here, I would be very curious to play Silent Hill F though and find out.
Yeah, because in Death Stranding 2, I often, this is just a me thing, but like if somebody's walking into a room, how do you hear the footsteps? Are they echoing? Is it a real flat sound? I mean, what do we have here? Because it tells me also what type of shoes they're wearing. If I can't really pinpoint that, then it doesn't work. Like for instance, like the person's wearing loafers, but they're going click, 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 click. You lost me. You weren't paying attention to your own scene. But Death Stranding doesn't suffer from that at all. It's very cognizant of the surroundings, the scene.
Yeah, I think that's really it, isn't it? It's the design of the sound. It's how well it's integrated into the world. It's how little time you spend thinking, why does that sound like that? Everything just feels right. But I'm very curious about Silent Hill F now.
Best performance awarded to an individual for voiceover acting, motion, and/or performance capture. The nominees are Ben Starr for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Charlie Cox for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Erika Ishii for Ghost of Yotei, Jennifer English for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Konatsu Kato for Silent Hill F, and Troy Baker for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Okay.
Go ahead, Con.
My blood boils at seeing Ben Starr in the list. Absolutely boils. Jennifer English too. Nope, can't do it. I'm just gonna move on. I think Charlie Cox, out of the games that I know about. So I've heard Eric Ishii's performance in Ghost of Yotei. I've heard Troy Baker in Indiana Jones, and I've heard Charlie Cox in Expedition 33, along with the other characters, of course, in Expedition 33. From those, I think Troy Baker had the best performance of the year that I've heard, but it wasn't in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So from this list, I would go for Charlie Cox, who I think, as Gustav, did an incredible job in Expedition 33. And it was only really with the introduction of other characters that I switched over to the French audio, because I found myself more and more curious about how the performances were. But I began the game, the very first 2 hours or so, in English. And I thought Charlie Cox in particular really stood out with their performance. So I would love to see Charlie Cox win this category.
Yeah, I think Legion and I talked a little bit about this category in our discussion with Maffey, and for me, it's really tough to give this award to anyone in Clair Obscur. And while I do think of the 3 nominees from Clair Obscur, Charlie Cox was far and away the best performance. I do think just the fact that there was the French audio and it felt almost more appropriate for the game as I played through it. I can't really recognize any of 3 American or the English performances when I switched the game away from English. And the same is true for Erika Ishii in Ghost of Yotei. I think that's another performance where, while they did a great job with the performance, I prefer the alternative, which is not nominated. And unfortunately, I don't have experience with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So this one was pretty clear for me. My vote was for Konatsu Kato for Silent Hill F. And while it sounds like this was awarded through process of elimination, it's really not. Her performance in that game was exceptional. It just so happened that none of the other nominees are ones I feel deserve this award.
Yeah, I agree. That's who I went with. I mean, she's very introspective throughout the entire game. She's playing this child character who is seeing it from her point of view and only her point of view. So you are always limited in a lot of things that are happening. So it's not just a person like, oh, what is happening? All the scenes changing, and you just react to that. She's actually seen it from that perspective, from that child's perspective. And that's not the easiest thing to do. It's kind of easier to say, okay, what if it was just me transplanting this character? That is definitely acting, but she's doing it a little bit more. She's doing it from a child's perspective as well. And so the things that she's has transplanted from her memory versus what's actually happening is there, and you can hear it in her voice. So yeah, I couldn't give it to anybody else. I was like, no, she did a phenomenal job.
I would just very quickly, before we move on, to just say it is completely understandable, but it is a shame, Banana.
I'm sorry. I just really expected you to say, before we move on, want to say Ben Starr sucks. I fully expected you to push one more jab at Ben Starr.
Ben Starr does not suck. Ben Starr is a very adequate voice actor who always sounds like Clive. And that's really my gripe with it. It's a single performance transposed onto another character. He's not a bad voice actor. He's probably a very good voice actor for that kind of voice, but I feel he's a bit of the Astarian performance in that, wow, this is the horny voice for this year, and in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll move on, and he'll just be that guy who sounded kind of hot a few years ago, and he'll be replaced by the next one in the cycle. I feel like it's that, and there's not much more to it. The thing I wanted to draw attention to, except for my dislike of Ben Starr's voice acting repertoire, is that it's understandable but disappointing that we can't have French language voice actors in this, because Renoir in particular, Fyodor Atkin, is an incredible performance in this game. Really, the gravitas that he gives to that character is wow. And I would recommend to anyone who is very much into that game and had probably played the English version first, which, despite my Thank You Banana hyperbole in a previous episode that this shouldn't be localized, of course the game should be localized, but if you love that game, get out there and try the French version, and particularly take a scene with Renoir and just see how that feels, because it's incredible.
I was a little baffled by that, and we talked about that with Maffey, in that for a game that decided to go full French, they went full French. You know, they say in the game industry, don't ever go full French, but they did. And
No, they don't. No one says that.
and I was going to say that they obviously leaned into the American voice first. That was the main. That's what they wanted to present. But why? Like, just go in. You went that far, go a little bit further. And I think I would have appreciated that. And that's me, of course. I can't speak. They're the ones spending all the millions of dollars on that risk. But I just kind of think it would have been better, personally.
Yeah, what did you say? The American voice with Ben Starr, English, and Jennifer English, and the other guy whose name I just forgot. Fuck. Charlie Cox. English, the guy I picked to win. It's clear why, and it's the obvious reason. It's the reason you hit on with Mappy last week, is that in the end, localization into English is a huge benefit to you, because it's the world's second language ultimately. And it's got an enormous player base who will appreciate it. You see even with Yakuza, for example, where I believe the earlier Yakuza games only had Japanese voice acting. Later versions have an English dub, because they know people will very likely want to play this. So it's not... I was going to say, so it's not a surprise. I just do wish that the French voice actors in particular could have had a bit more of a look into this category, which is naturally Anglophone-centric because it's Anglophone Game Awards.
Yeah.
But it's a shame nonetheless.
Yeah. I would have been hard-pressed, even though it really... I would have ultimately said the same decision that I did with the Silent Hill. But if... what's her name? Erin Yvette, she did Blonde Blazer's voice. Because she also actually did Samus, but Metroid Prime didn't come out in time to be nominated. Samus doesn't say much, and for her to be the voice actress, I was like, oh. It's because it was done really well there too, and I would have been like,
Legion's Metroid bias coming out.
Yeah, that would have been a very biased answer. Yeah.
I've just realized I'm more annoyed now than I was a few minutes ago. Kodatsu Kato does the Japanese performance, right, for Silent Hill F.
Yes.
Yeah, that's more aggravating now, because
Yeah. Yep. I didn't want to bring that up, but yeah, we've awarded exclusively the American or English voice actors for a game that is recorded in
Good job,
multiple
Com.
languages.
I'm proud of you. You're growing.
I pieced it together. Sherlock Holmes over here. All right, shall we jump on to the next category before my blood boils? The next category is Innovation in Accessibility. And the nominees are Assassin's Creed Shadows, Atomfall, Doom the Dark Ages, EA Sports FC26, and South of Midnight.
I got to say, I know you loved Atomfall. Com has a review on our channel for Atomfall, so go check that out.
Full of praise.
To be fair, Com's review doesn't focus heavily on accessibility.
It does. He brings it up, though.
I think I mentioned it. It's not the focus of it. I think I did mention it, that it was...
It's mentioned, but your review is a complete review of the game, not a focus on this particular aspect of it.
Absolutely correct.
But Banana definitely has looked into this one a lot more than I have, and so when I did my vote, it was more based on like my experience with that game, and I noticed all the features that it had, and all the you could like slide the difficulty scale from way down to way up high to expert. You could approach the game as a non-gamer and probably still have fun with it. And for me, that was Doom, the Dark Ages. A bad Doom game is still the best, better than any other type of Doom game out there. But it was done so well, and it runs okay if you have a system for it. I just came from the approach of like, could I play this game if I've never really played a Doom type game? And you definitely can.
Yeah, I just want to really quickly, before we dig in any further, for anybody who is curious about these awards, I think last year when we discussed this, I criticized the Game Awards for this category because I thought it was a category that blended accessibility and representation into a single category and rewarded games for representation by representing it as accessibility. I have learned since last year that is not accurate. I was off base with my assessment. It just turns out that games that focus on representation also care about accessibility. Who would have guessed? But this year, I will say I very much appreciate that the Game Awards website includes an explanation of the specific accessibility features that are being considered for each of these games. So if you are curious about the nominees in this games, I'd recommend checking out the Game Awards website and reading up on why these were the games that were selected. And I also think that is very helpful because something we've mentioned, we're not the target audience for most accessibility features. So we're going to be ignorant of their existence in games where we don't need them, unless we're just bored and go explore features we don't need. So having that information concisely presented to us was extremely helpful. And I just want to give the Game Awards a little praise this year for, first of all, not making the mistake I thought they did. And secondly, going even further in the right direction and providing me with the additional information to make an informed decision on this.
I'm in a very...
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, with all of that said, and knowing that Legion just admitted to not looking into the details as much as I did, we picked the same game. I picked Doom.
So, very similar perspective. I was just very happily pleased to see that on the website they had the list of what was being judged. Why? Because I think this is a category where most of us, ourselves generally included, are not the target audience. We are likely sympathetic to the needs, but it's hard for us to really put ourselves in the shoes of the people who might actually need them. So to have an actual, not criteria, but a list of factors that were being considered was very, very useful. So well done to the Game Awards for that. And purely based on personal experience playing the game and happiness at the range of particularly motor accessibility features that the game had, I went for Atomfall. But it's really any of these games, well done. I don't particularly even care to pick a winner here. Well done. I'm glad for everything.
I think that's probably the best answer we can provide is no matter which game in this category wins, all of these games are moving in the right direction for gaming in making gaming more accessible.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not trying to like sell Doom more so. It's just I was surprised how many other features there were, like text size, colorblind, which is in a lot of games, but you could even adjust different types of colorblind, I think. And so it's just like every time I went down, I was like, oh, there's another thing. Oh, there's another thing. And it was just so many of them. But yeah.
I believe Atomfall had auto combat. It definitely had auto reload and I think auto fire. So not quite auto combat, but very, very close. It was the same. It was just when you go through, you go through and you think, well, I didn't really even think about adding this option. I wouldn't even have thought of that. But when you see it, you're like, yeah, there's going to be someone out there for whom this is going to be useful. Good. We're entering a world slowly where step by step, you've got controllers that are becoming more and more adaptable. You've got games becoming more and more adaptable that you may reach at some point. We probably won't, but you could even reach a point where this category doesn't even need to exist anymore because we start to think of all of these things as just normal stuff that you put in your game.
I think that's kind of the ideal end game for this category, is that it will eventually become phased out and we will forget that it was ever necessary.
Yeah, its goal is to not exist anymore.
Exactly.
There's Greek tragedy in there somewhere. Shall we?
The golf of categories. The ideal is to play as little golf as possible.
You know why? Because it's boring. So the next category, I think it's you, Banana.
It sure is. Let me just going back over I was in the learn about the nominees page, so I have to navigate back real quick. So the next category is games for impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. And the categories are Consume Me. God damn it. Despelote? I don't know if that's
Spanish. I can't speak Spanish.
Legion. Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, South of Midnight, and Wanderstop.
Did you just assume I speak Spanish?
No, I know for a fact you speak Spanish because you told me and spoken Spanish.
¿Qué?
I think I'm gonna pretend that Wanderstop is German as well. So I have to admit I haven't played.
Let's ask Woodkid.
From the famously German-speaking city of Lyon in France. I haven't played any of these games. I have to bow out.
Well, I did a video on South of Midnight, and I think South of Midnight is my slam dunk. It's combining historical significance with a very, very strong topic, and combining the modern world to those old ties and saying there's a lot of healing going on between those things. Racism, a lot of issues where a culture is put down because of just who they are. The game is all about healing. I couldn't think of a better definition of a game that met that definition than South of Midnight. So I chose that one.
Yeah, I think I'm in kind of a similar boat as Com. 4 of the 5 games in this category I have not played or seen at all. I have heard good things about Wanderstop and Consume Me, but beyond knowing that other people have enjoyed them, I don't know much about those games. South of Midnight, though, I watched pretty heavily when it came out. I haven't played it myself, but I did watch Legion's videos. I've watched some of our friends stream the game, and I agree completely. I feel like there may be a little bit of a kind of America-centric issue with the impact that game can have, but it is, I think, a meaningful investigation into the issues that this country is still dealing with. And like Legion said, it's not about pointing fingers. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about it's not a focus on the suffering and all the negativity that comes from that. It's how do we move forward? How do we heal from this? How do we learn from this and in a healthy way take that information into the future, as opposed to how do we fix this and who do we punish? Like that's not the focus that I think needs to be promoted. So I think South of Midnight, unfortunately, is in a position where it's the one game I know anything about, but it's the one game that I know about that absolutely deserves to be in this category. So that was where my vote went.
Very good.
But just because of a lack of experience, I'll move us on to the next category because we don't have much to really do in that one. Yeah. So
watch my video.
Yeah,
I am. It's open now. The next category is best ongoing. So
I was just going to say, and then Cobb just stops focusing on the conversation and watches Legion's video instead of participating in the podcast for the next
as he
7
should.
minutes.
It's a wonderful video. So, best ongoing. Awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content, evolving player experience over time. The nominees are Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, and No Man's Sky. Banana, I'll let you take the lead.
So as far as this one goes, I feel like this is a category that kind of represents the direction any of these games are going in, and kind of awards companies who invest in making a game continuously engaging for their audience. And that might be my interpretation of this category, and I could be off on that, but this is less about there is another category that seems to overlap a bit with this. And I believe that's the best community support, which I think is the next category. in this game, or in this category, I feel like this is awarding the game that is constantly focused on the in-game content and making it a worthwhile investment to continue playing all of these games. And for me, that is Final Fantasy XIV. I think the top two contenders in this are Final Fantasy XIV and No Man's Sky from my point of view. I think those games are constantly seeing new content, seeing updates that are improving the gamer experience, and they are very, very focused between Square Enix and Hello Games on delivering a continuously engaging gameplay. And between those two, might have had a little bias because it starts with Final Fantasy. I had to go with Final Fantasy XIV.
Legion.
I went with No Man's Sky. It's in years past I would not have said
have that bias.
Yeah, in years past I may not have said that, but the one thing that I really appreciate about Starfield, and I'm not the only one. A lot of people love the shipbuilding aspect and being able to do this travel.
Don't worry,
between.
Starfield was not one of the nominees. You didn't miss anything.
Yeah. But making your
I was
own.
watching South at midnight. I just
Yeah, making your own ship. A lot of people like the biggest thing that was the players would post blueprints or whatever they call them there. Would be like, I made this ship, or I made the Millennium Falcon, or I made this, and it was something that they really gravitated to. No Man's Sky didn't do that at all. But then this past year, No Man's Sky added shipbuilding and being able to like move around within your ship and be able to like have crews, and was like, there it is. So it's that one thing that I was really lacking in that game that now I have.
Well, I can give you my full impression of it. Sadly, my winner actually isn't available. My winner would have been American Truck Simulator. But from the options available, Marvel Rivals, I haven't played. That's the one. Fortnite, I appreciate its ongoing evolution, but I don't think it's good for gaming as a whole. So it's not a game that I could really give this award to. It was then tied between Final Fantasy XIV, Helldivers 2, and No Man's Sky. Helldivers 2, I think its best year was 2024, not 2025. So Helldivers fell out of the race. And ultimately, I went for No Man's Sky. Because for me, what I was really looking for in this is how recognizable is the game compared to where it started. I thought that was a nice opening, clear benchmark that I could use. No Man's Sky has just continued to evolve year on year into a game so thoroughly unrecognizable from how it began that I just think it's hard to overlook. It's not an attack on Final Fantasy XIV by any stretch of the imagination, which is a game that does a lot of good for gaming as well. I just went No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I think that's something that we kind of almost implicitly have to say about every one of these categories is that the ones we haven't selected don't suck just because we didn't select them.
Most of them, there's a reason they're in the 5 or 6.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, I do agree with Fortnite. I don't think it's a great thing for gaming.
At the same time, it's hard to argue, with its ongoing evolution, there is always something new. It is always developing. We just don't like it.
Well, let's tie that to the community support thing, because I think a lot of these games are very similar in how or these categories, I should say, are similar in how they're connected to the games that they're talking about.
So this category, best community support, recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates and patches. And the nominees are Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, and No Man's Sky.
Now, this is a category I'm not going to dive into a huge amount because I'm largely disinterested in social media as a whole, and a lot of this does seem to be how does the developer communicate with the players, etc. It's not my thing. But I was generally reasonably impressed with the Helldivers 2 team and their approach to being very public with updates, public about the difficulties of the game, particularly the recent change in file size where the game's been reduced by, I think, 80% in size down to 20-something gig instead of 100-something gigs. And I thought they did a good job of being open about that, talking about why development was being focused in certain directions and not in others. So my very low commitment answer is Helldivers 2.
I think I do appreciate some of the things Helldivers 2 has done in this regard this year. I do think they have certainly been very transparent. I think they've focused on what they perceive to be a lot of the issues with the game from their audience's perspective. But I do find some frustrations with what they interpret their audience wanting. I know there is a great deal of frustration within the Helldivers 2 community about the direction that the developers have taken the game and the things that they prioritize in their updates. That being said, that size improvement and compressing the game down 80% is a huge amount. They absolutely deserve recognition for something that gets forgotten very often in modern gaming because storage is relatively cheap. But I am personally playing most of my games now on a gaming laptop. And when I install a game that's 120 gigs, I think, all right, do I need to start getting rid of other games? Is this worth getting rid of other games? So that's a wonderful feature, but I do have my frustrations with Helldivers 2 and their ability to understand what their audience wants. And this is probably another situation where my bias is playing its part. I went with Baldur's Gate 3. I think the updates they have put into that game, particularly patch 8, the added content that was never necessary. That game was exceptional without that patch. They did not need additional content, and unpaid additional content for one of my favorite games was a tremendously appreciated surprise. And I also think their transparency and their method of informing their audience of what they're focusing on and what will be included and what won't be addressed has been exceptional over the course of the year. And I do have to acknowledge that it's just one of my favorite games. So there is almost certainly some bias there, but they definitely deserve to be in this category. Even if my bias is what has put them over the top of the other nominees, they absolutely deserve to be considered.
Should say Baldur's Gate 3. I should, but I'm going to say No Man's Sky. I really remember their communication with their videos saying this was our roadmap and this is when we're going to be releasing the new updates, specifically with the Starship stuff. And they're doing a lot of stuff at the same time with their MMO that they're building. So a lot of their things that they learned doing that, they're applying toward the No Man's Sky game. And I think they just overestimated some things. And so they were very clear about that ahead of time. I said, we said, I don't remember what it was, like March or April, but it's going to be June. And they were very early on, they said that. And so they said, look, we have to redact our earlier statements. I know everybody was excited for this one. And they didn't have to say all that. They could have just said, no, it's been delayed, and then moved on, or just put a little memo. But they did an entire video. They said, this is where we're at now. This is what we're doing. They gave a whole a video of in-game stuff. And so they're very transparent about that. So I just thought it kind of met the definition. So I went with No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something to recognize, because that's not something I've seen in many other situations in any industry. A company that is willing to acknowledge a failure on their own part for what it is. There's been a lot of effort to spin things, a lot of effort to make excuses. And I think just saying, hey, we promised this by this date, it's not going to work out. We're dealing with it. We apologize. Here's where we're at. Just for your information, we're going to update our anticipated delivery date of this, but we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to bullshit you and try and say like, oh, well, this isn't really our fault. This is just them being sincere and honest in this category. And I think that's wonderful. I think that is another sign that, yeah, they deserve to be in this category. They deserve that recognition.
Well, welcome to yet another episode.
Shut the fuck up. Friend. So the next category is Best Independent Game, and the nominees are Absolum, Ball X Pit, Blueprints, Clair Obscure Expedition 33, Hades 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. And I think this is an awkward category.
I agree, because by definition, you're an indie if you self-publish. And there's only 2 that meet this criteria.
I think the thing we have to consider here is that the definition of indie that we use seems to be wholly inadequate. I think The Witcher 3, indie, right? I believe it's self-published. That's absurd. Hades 2 at this point. Hades 1, sure. 2, I'm not sure we can really use that. The feel of what indie is, even if something fits the definition. Hollow Knight, same problem. I'm sorry, Cleared Obscure. Calling it indie feels utterly bizarre.
Well, right. There's our perception of it, then there's the definition, and none of these are meshing. And so it's really hard to give it like CD Projekt is an indie, you know. Larian is an indie.
Well, right? Self-published.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Larian is an indie. Yeah. So, you know.
I just feel as though we need to find out where we stand on definitions for this.
Yeah, I have a hard time giving leverage to Silksong and Hades, because they're making tons of money off of their first game. Whether they put out these games next year or 2 years from now, they would not be hurting. And I personally have this indie mindset of like, they're taking a risk. This is a game. Either they make it or break it as a developer and as a publisher. This they got to make it, right? Those don't meet that criteria. But I could kind of say that for Sandfall, you know?
You could definitely say it for Sandfall.
So that's why I put Claire on that one. That's why I went with them. It met the closest definition I could associate with that issue. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think my problem is when you look at the background of the studio, look who's founded it, look at the connections they come from. It's indie feels like the strangest way in the world to describe it. It reminds me a bit of Trump getting a small loan of $1 million. It's that kind of idea. It's just, it doesn't fit my mental blueprint of what indie is. But the trouble is, if someone asks me to define what indie is, well, I'm going to give these really wishy-washy answers all the way through. I'm going to say, well, it's got to be a make or break project. Also, is Clear Obscure. Yeah, but the team needs to be smaller. Well, Hades didn't have a giant team, I don't think. Well, at the same time, they had money for... There's a string of potential caveats and things. And I think the old pornography test kind of works for indie. I can't really define it, but I can tell you what it is. And to me, a lot of these games don't really fit the bill.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, I guess I'd go with Blueprints, but it's not a category that I particularly have any real interest in because it feels like it's a bit of a parody of itself.
So yeah, I agree completely with the lack of definition, the lack of precision in terms of what indie actually means. And in my mind, this is a category where your developer is competing against established massive companies in this category. And while that is probably true for quite a few of these games, in my mind, Hollow Knight still stands out. Team Cherry has 2 games. That's it. Their establishment as a force in gaming came from their first game. This is their second game. They did such an excellent job with their first game that we know who they are. They still feel like the underdog. They still feel like they match up with what indie should mean, enough for me to say that doing the same thing they did with the original Hollow Knight and just delivering a game that is excellent in so many different ways and delivers with a small budget, a small team, it feels like it captures what indie development should be, which is focusing on delivering a quality product without just throwing money at the problem. Now, admittedly, Hollow Knight, the first game, did so well that they have money to just throw at the problem, but it's still a small team. They didn't build a bigger team. They didn't invest in a ton of marketing. The game is very much winning based solely on the quality of the product. And that is a huge part of what I think should be rewarded for indie developers, because they can't compete with the marketing of well-established giants within this industry, and Team Cherry's still doing that. Silksong is winning based solely on the hype generated from their first project and the quality of the project that it is. So that's where my vote went this year.
Yeah, it's understandable. I think, honestly, I would like to see this category completely redone. Ideally, what I'd like to see here, unless there's a standout like Balatro, for example, I would like to see games here that I've never heard of. I think that would be quite nice if you had people essentially reaching out beyond the biggest games of the last year or so and seeing actually what's really out there. What indie projects have we seen this year that have essentially given a new studio a right to continue? You know, what has been successful enough that the studio who made it as their first game is now able to keep going on, pushing forwards, who didn't have a big background? Maybe looking into sort of like the feels behind every story as well, like how many of these people were working jobs at the same time as they were coming home and doing their programming in the night, that kind of thing. I just feel as though there's something about this category that it doesn't feel right.
I definitely agree. And I feel like this ties back to our conversation from last year of like, what do we want to get out of the Game Awards? And I think as much as I love the idea of this being a category filled with games that I've never heard of, I don't know how to vote on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would definitely love for this category to be the category that everybody looks at and goes, oh, I've never heard of that. I should take a look at that game. I think that would be a great way to look at this category. Is if you've never heard of a game in this category, go try it out because it's probably pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm.
That first one, was it Absalom?
That one I've not heard of.
I've played that game, and it's interesting because it definitely has a lot of co-op features, but you don't have to do co-op. But it is definitely a roguelike. But the graphical presentation of it is really interesting, and it's more of like an RPG type setting, kind of similar to Hades, really. But it does it in a very unique style, in a very unique way. I really, really did like that one. So as an indie game, I really liked it.
So best debut indie game for the best debut game created by a new independent studio. And the nominees are Blueprints, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Despelote, and Dispatch. I feel like Com and I are probably going to approach this category from the same place. I'm confused. I'm not sure that I understand what debut or indie means anymore. And part of that confusion comes from one of the nominees who has withdrawn from this category, which I believe is the developer for Megabonk. And I think he informed the Game Awards, like, this is not my debut project. I've had games released in the past. And when you get that information from regarding a game where it's a single developer, it's like, oh, well, yeah, this is not that developer's first work. It's no longer a debut. And then you look at the nominees for this category, and none of them are a single person's development. They are a development studio, which is filled with developers who have worked in this industry for 10, 15 years. None of these are debut games. These are people who have been developers for a very long time, leveraging all of their experience and skill into a new game that just has a different name on the dev studio. So for me, looking at Ad Hoc and knowing it is a huge part of the Telltale Games team, I don't see it as a debut game. I know it's Ad Hoc's first game, but the developers behind Ad Hoc have had success with games exactly like this in the past.
Yeah, it's pretty much, you've called me. It's pretty much exactly where I stand as well. It's a category that I don't really see anything in. I feel and it's a wonderful, wonderful game, but when Clair Obscur is in there with its team of animators, though they were contracted in, I think they weren't the core team, when it's someone who was like an Ubisoft creative lead 15 years ago, or Microsoft, can't remember what it was a long, long time, has been in the game industry for so long. I wouldn't have given Kojima best debut game when he founded his studio. He'd spent 30 years in the industry or whatever working with Konami. He built up this team, he built up his knowledge. I wish this was much more for people who were really getting into the industry for the first time. It was individuals' first projects, not the label behind the publisher or developer. I don't know the background of those on Desperote. I don't know the background, but they are the ones that I'm more inclined to lean to give it to. That's it. It's a very boring answer. I just think the category does itself a disservice.
Yeah, I don't know. When you think of a new dev, and yes, it may be the same group that have been there, but you don't have the architecture of the company itself. I mean, you have HR, you have a lot more than just the developer, people who are working on the programs. And that is also has to be taken into consideration. So getting the game out to be published, a whole lot of sequence of events have to happen. So to call it a debut for that developer, I think it's fair. So the one game, I thought it was Blueprints, but you may be right with the Mega Bunk. They had already a game from before, but under a different developer. But I think that one's a little bit harder because I think it was really just a name shift. It wasn't really a new dev. But Ad Hoc is very different because they did have to start from the very beginning. They did have some backing because they had contracts that they did for other Telltale games that were supposed to come out in the future, like Wolf Among Us 2. So they were still had access to some of their programs and stuff that they knew how to work with, and it just gave them the training so that they could actually make a game like Dispatch. But I think if Dispatch was in the game of the year, I'd be hard pressed to say, I don't know, Clair Obscur or even Dispatch. So for me, I had to call it Dispatch in this category because every scene in that game, we talked about pacing like in Mass Effect 3 and stuff. There's the pacing of the game is just excellently done. There's so many scenes just individually, even how minute they are well thought of. And so I don't know, like I said, from the architecture of a company and translating that to an actual game that's published, I think it's Dispatch.
Oh, for sure. Like I wouldn't imply for a second, that it's not a debut game. These are new studios. I just feel it goes against what feels like the right spirit for the award. That's it. It's and it gives me an itchy feeling like down my spine when it's a debut game, and then you think, okay, well, let's look at the basics. Who are the founders of this company? And then you have X amount of years with Ubisoft. You have literally the lead team for the Telltale games. And then you think like, okay, well, how about the voice actors? Maybe they're new. No, Aaron Paul is the voice actor in one. Moist Critical's in there. And then you look at the other, and Andy Serkis is in your little indie project. So is Ben Starr for all of his Ben Starness. So it's the feel of it more than anything else. And that's what this is going to be. And it's woolly and it's vague, but it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I think that's the big part of this discussion is we are not in any way suggesting that these games are not quality games and don't deserve to be recognized as such. Dispatch is an excellent game. I don't feel like it's a debut game, and I don't feel like it's an indie game. Yeah. Claire, I don't feel like it's an indie game at all. And I think the idea that there was so much hype surrounding both of those games that I knew about them months ahead of time and I was looking forward to their release feels inconsistent with what an indie game is in my mind. So for me, this category was fundamentally a choice between Blueprints and Despelote. And I loved Blueprints. But I did end up voting for the game I haven't even played because it just feels like if it's competing with Clair Obscur and Expedition 33 and I haven't heard of it, it is the best debut indie game, hands down, because it's up there with what I think should be Game of the Year. And I've never heard of it.
Well,
and I think
the other side.
Sorry, Leaf, you go ahead.
No, just the other side of that, just playing devil's advocate. I mean, you do have guys that are in the industry that have been doing it for years, that are qualified. They did Red Dead, they've done Grand Theft Auto, and they come out with Mind's Eye. And then nobody's like, oh, okay, well, they fell down. That's the part of it. They created a new dev. That's what happened. This is what you get. So it works both ways. You have to kind of reward at least what when it does succeed,
Yeah, no, I just feel as though Clair Obscur in this category is taking a position of something else that could do with the boost that this would give them. And I think a nice way to think about it is just going to be like, think of AAA, AA, and indie. Think of it as like a 3-tiered thing, just to begin with. In that category, Clair Obscur is not AAA. It ain't indie either. And then immediately when it's in that sort of AA field, I think you should think, well, this category isn't for this. It's already got how many possible awards it could win. It doesn't need to be in here. Dispatch. Weirdly, I'm a bit more... I don't know why, I'm a bit more okay with it. I don't know why, but even then, I'm not. I'm just closer to being okay with it. It just feels like it's not what this award should be about. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's fundamentally it, is looking at the previous award, what I think we should be taking away from it, and Com said it. I'm excited to see games I've never heard of in this category. I feel like best debut indie game, there should be even more games I've never heard of. And yet there's only one, because Clair Obscur and Dispatch are in there. They are taking up spots that I feel belong to another game.
In the background, yeah. I'm thinking about all those games I linked to Banana in our messages. Banana, look at this game, and it's just like this one with like 3 reviews on it.
Yeah. And I don't see any of them in this category. It's gospel.
All right, let me pull us out of this into the next one then. I'm just for the non-video note, I've skipped over VR, AR, and I've skipped over mobile. So we've gone straight to best action game, which I'm in a bad position for because I haven't played really any of these. So next category is best action game. Nominees are Battlefield 6, Doom: The Dark Ages, Hades 2, Ninja Gaiden 4, and Shinobi Art of Vengeance.
I wanted to say Ninja Gaiden, but I just don't have enough experience with it. But I know the developer for it, he was a character. He recently passed away. I have a feeling he's going to get it because of the recent passing. But I said Doom. As an action game, it just works. Like I said, a bad Doom game is still better than anything else out there. But I really wanted to say Ninja Gaiden. I just don't have the experience to be able to say and pull out features that I thought were great about it. So,
Banana.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much the same boat. I love the Ninja Gaiden series. I think it is an excellent series of games, and I think it is always that classic throwback to the original. It is a challenging game that forces you to get good at what the game mechanics are, and then keeps you engaged with story, with fun gameplay. I think I would love to have more experience with Ninja Gaiden than I do. Fortunately, I don't. And for me, this category was limited to just Hades 2 and Doom. And I think just the way action is presented in Doom gives it that edge. I feel like your separation from what's going on in Hades, just from the point of view and the way it's virtually represented, the way you are looking at the content, gives Doom the edge in this category and makes you feel a little more immersed. It makes you feel the action that much more. And I think that is something that should be recognized in this category. Not only is the action great, but you feel like you're a part of it.
I didn't think about the perspective until you brought that up, because the one part that I did have a criticism, and I'm not alone, of the Doom is when you're flying and you do feel like you're a part in a way. So it's interesting that that connection.
Well, I'm going to put myself in basically the same field as Banana. I can only speak about Hades 2 and Doom. But I don't think any game has ever defined action in a way that the modern Doom games have. And if we're specifically talking about, action, I don't think any game personifies it better. So for me, Doom would almost always win this every year that the game would come out. The modern iterations of Doom, I don't think anything does it better. The perspective, the way that it encourages that viscerality as well, the way it encourages you to just get in there and experience the game from that perspective, best action, Doom: The Dark Ages.
Yeah, you get rewarded for being hyper aggressive, so you're in there. Yeah.
Whilst feeling the danger. I think Hades, a lot of the time, I don't feel the danger. I'm just going in, sweeping it up, and I'm aggressive, but it's more just because I want to clear the room out. Whereas Doom, there's more, okay, I'm in danger, but I'm in less danger if I just get in there. And I think
I do feel
feels-
like the fact that Hades is a bit roguelite does contribute to that. You're supposed to fail in roguelites. You're supposed to die. That means the action can't be as intense. I'm not really worried about the consequences of failure. In Doom, I very much am. So I think,
psychologically it sets you up differently, doesn't it?
yeah.
All
And
right.
yeah, I completely agree. I think Doom represents what action games almost should be.
100%.
And it's funny because our next category, best action / adventure game. Just call it adventure
please,
game.
I hate that.
Just call it adventure
Yeah,
game.
rename the damn category. It's an adventure game. What's the nominees, Banana?
I almost feel like I understand that extra detail, because when you think of best adventure game, you could have visual novels that tell a story but don't actually engage you much in gameplay, and this is them separating these games from visual novels because you engage in the adventure via action. But I don't know that I need an action category and an action adventure.
The thing is, I look at it and I think if I look at the best categories, I just think where does Outer Wilds belong? And it would belong in best adventure. As soon as you put action in there, it doesn't. It doesn't belong in RPG. It's not a sim. It's not a racing game. I just think, where would that belong? And where do you find the places for games like Journey in this? Well, as soon as we make this action adventure, I feel like we haven't necessarily cut them out, because we could still put them in and say, well, that's the adventure part. But I think naturally your brain starts thinking, well, it's action adventure. And you start penalizing these games in a way they don't deserve. Sorry, Banana. What's the nominees?
I don't know. I think that's actually absolutely fair. And the idea that there is no adventure category, there's only action adventure. So if your game is not action focused, then there's no category for it, unless you force it into this category, which feels like it's not focused on what that game does well. So yeah, I completely agree. That being said, enough of my nonsense. The category, Best Action Adventure, for the Best Action Adventure game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. And the nominees are Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Ghost of Yotei, Hollow Knight Silksong, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and Split Fiction.
So I'm going to jump in here because I think I might be the only one, but Indiana Jones and the Great Circle gets my nomination for Best Action Adventure Game, because that's what this category should be about. It's those kind of games. This is the category where you need your Uncharted, your Spider-Mans, your Indiana Jones, your Jedi Survivor. That, to me, personifies this category. Death Stranding, it's too long. And I love the game. It's my game of the year. It doesn't go here. For me, Ghost of Yotei has a good chance. Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't quite feel like it fits. Split Fiction, no. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, to me, summarizes what a good action-adventure game should be. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Yeah, I think if it was just best adventure game, Death Stranding, but action adventure, no.
Yeah! Like in Death Stranding 2 has good action.
Walking adventure? Hell yeah.
Yeah, like when you're doing the action, it's great, but you spend a lot of time thinking, well, if I just build like a zip line around this camp, I'll never have to fight anyone. Sorry,
I do
hurt you
like
in this
that
category.
the category description includes the word traversal, and the walking simulator game is the one where like, that doesn't belong in this category at all.
Oh, there's traversing, all right. Nothing but.
It's just boring.
No,
But yeah, I do agree with that assessment. I don't feel like Death Stranding 2 belongs in this category. I don't feel like Silksong really belongs in this category. So for me, the three contenders are Ghost of Yotei, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and Split Fiction. And Split Fiction just doesn't feel special to me. It feels like a continuation of previous games that developer has done. I think it's fun. I think it's a game I enjoyed, but I don't think it's really exceptional in what it does. So this really did get narrowed down to just Ghost of Yotei and Indiana Jones. And unfortunately, I have much less experience with Indiana Jones and selected Ghost of Yotei.
no, I said Indiana Jones. I don't know of anybody that actually complained about the puzzles. And in that type of game, think about it, Indiana Jones, you better get your puzzles right. And I don't know of anybody that they're probably out there, but I don't know of anybody who complained about the puzzle design and the immersion and just being able to get around the certain camps with the enemies, and whether you choose a stealth approach, whether you choose to attack. You had all these different ways of doing it. That's adventure.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you a strange thing. I don't think it could have won any other category. Like it couldn't have won best gameplay. It couldn't have won best puzzles. It couldn't have won best game. But this, I think it's made for this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I hope I'm wrong. I voted for Ghost of Yotei because I have more experience with that. But I hope Indiana Jones is the best adventure game, because that is exactly what Indiana Jones has always been. These incredible adventures. And I feel like if I had more experience with the game, I'd be able to say hands down, this is the winner. If the quality is there, I just don't have the experience, but I kind of want it to be the winner.
Weirdly, I think it's if we went back and looked at this Game Awards like from this year, I wouldn't recommend everyone play Clair Obscur, because it's a very, very long game, and I think there are certain people who will just be turned off. I've mentioned before, my brother wouldn't play it. As soon as it's turn-based, he doesn't care. I wouldn't recommend everyone play Death Stranding. I think there's a large part of the audience who wouldn't like it. I think it's worth everyone trying it, honestly, but I wouldn't recommend to almost everyone to say, give it a good try. Even if the first few hours don't do it for you, keep going. I wouldn't say that to everyone. Indiana Jones, the kind of game I think I'd recommend to basically anyone. It's just that kind of game. Oh, more of those, please. All right, shall I pull us into the next category, which best RPG, for the best game designed with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. The nominees are Avowed, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and The Outer Worlds 2.
I don't know why Monster Hunter Wilds is necessarily in here. Nobody plays that really for the story, although there's more story in Wilds than there is in any monster game. But even then, it's it's there.
I completely agree with you, but reading that description of what best RPG is, you and I clearly have different definitions of what an RPG is from the Game Awards, because at no point did they mention story in the category description. And story is hugely important for the RPGs I love to play. I agree with you. I don't see Monster Hunter Wilds as an RPG, but the way they define RPG, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it's a strange one, actually. I was very much on the grounds that I don't see Monster Hunter Wilds in this category, but it's because I don't think it's a very good game. I love the world. I just don't think Monster Hunter Wilds did a great job this time, which is so disappointing for a game with such a legendary tradition, that this time around I feel like they kind of missed the landing. I wouldn't have it in there on those grounds, but by their very brief definition, it fits perfectly fine. I just wouldn't have it here on quality grounds. That's all. And like Banana said, I just think our definition of what an RPG is, and the other implicit qualities, like having the story, like having the character customization. I'm thinking of things like choice in the game. Well,
almost build customization, like how you choose to engage in the gameplay feels like a very RPG quality.
Yeah, and in that, actually, Monster Hunter Wilds does pretty damn well. It just misses out entirely on anything to do with parties, anything to do with character progression and development, in the sense of narrative development. Mm-hmm. Shall we jump in and assume we're not picking Monster Hunter Wilds and pick our winners?
Oh, I picked Monster Hunter Wilds anyway. I did. That would be
Ben Starr.
Yeah.
Ghost of Yotei.
Screw you, I'll pick who I want.
I went with the Expedition 33. I got stuck on the character customization because I always like to build my own character from beginning to end. And Monster Hunter Wilds definitely lets you go wild with that one. I will say that, but that's the one exceptional part of that game. But Clair Obscur with all the Pictos and the builds and the parties you can put, it's just the unlimited ability to navigate the battlefield based on how you approach it. The different types of weapons that each party member could use. If you use Lune, who has the ability to heal, do you lean into that? Do you kind of lean into her elemental? Maybe you can have bonus stats on her. Forget all the different character categories, but you know, the ones that would like dexterity or something. I forget all the names of them. But if you leaned into that, then that might change. Even though you have a better weapon, you might want this. Anyway, it's just on.
Every
and on
character
and on.
gets exclusively luck investment. I don't know what you're doing.
That's what I was boosting all the way from the beginning.
Yeah,
That critical rate is a killer. Oh,
yeah. Legion's playing it wrong.
idiot. What about you, Banana? What have you picked?
I picked Claire Obscure. I agree with Legion on pretty much everything he said, except for that stat investment. But I think of the customization that you see in Claire Obscure in the same way that I think of the customization you saw in Dragon Age 2. You're always playing as Hawk. Hawk always looks pretty much the same. You get customization in how you build the character around that aesthetic. So you're not getting that character customization in the way that you saw in Veilguard or in the way that you see in Baldur's Gate, where you build the character from the ground up and you choose their race and their gender and their pure cosmetic customizations. In Claire, you're given existing characters and you customize the way they navigate the world. So that customization is still there, and it still perfectly satisfies my concept of what an RPG should be. And I just think Claire delivers on everything that an RPG should be. And I love Claire for the sole reason that it brought turn-based combat back into a consideration for future development. Because I feel like for years, people have thought of turn-based combat as this archaic holdover from a long since past era that no longer has a place in gaming. And I still love turn-based combat. I still think of it as a very viable way to build combat in your game. And Claire did an excellent job of engaging with a modern audience in what might be perceived as an archaic form of combat.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, actually. I thought something similar, but then I was doing like a mental inventory. Just very quickly, Expedition 33 took this category for me. I'm not too bothered about the whole turn-based combat thing, just because I feel there's still a lot out there if you're looking outside of Final Fantasy. Yeah, which I think sometimes, and we've talked about this before, so I know it's not what you're doing, but we have a tendency to equate what is Final Fantasy doing with turn-based is dead. Whereas out there's still so much. And if you look at the major releases, we've got Dragon Quest, which remains its turn-based origins. Yakuza, which moved over from action-based to turn-based with the Like a Dragon series. We got Octopath Traveler, Claire Obscure, and the big one, Persona, which is a purely turn-based system. So we still have these games out there. On the other hand, what I was really happy to see in Claire Obscure was the return of what's essentially the Final Fantasy VIII junction system. I thought that was really cool because I thought the junction system was great. It was awkwardly executed, but the idea behind it I thought was so cool because of the customization that allows you to have with just a few simple little stat changes that you can build your characters into something entirely different. I'm glad to see that back personally. So, yeah, I think Claire will hopefully do a lot of good for games in the future. I hope we don't see a knee-jerk reaction of companies thinking like, yeah, no, we've got to get back to turn-based or whatever, because it's pretty hard to get right.
We will.
Yeah. If Final Fantasy 17 is turn-based, I will bite my own face off. Like, I really hope it isn't.
I think you're right in that there are still great turn-based games out there, but I feel like they are in series that have established themselves with quality, and so you don't see as much pushback. So we don't see as many new IPs being developed with turn-based combat, and that's my issue. When I think Claire was announced when Baldur's Gate 3 was announced, I felt like I heard a lot of that pushback. I saw a lot of that, like, oh, it's turn-based, why would they do that? And while I don't think turn-based should be every game, I don't think it's inherently a better system. I had a very strong opposition to that voice I was hearing in the gaming industry of like, why would you invest in turn-based? Turn-based very much has a place in gaming in the same way that real-time action has a place in gaming. They are not inherently at odds. It's just, what do you want your game to focus on? And that's always been my point of view, is I don't need every game to try and be Dark Souls. I don't need every game to try and be Baldur's Gate 3. I don't need every game to try and be Claire. I feel like we will see a lot of that copycat nonsense, because we always do. People are trying to latch on whatever is successful. But I do think that people will, the good development studios, the good entities in the gaming industry will recognize what is valuable from this experience with Claire and say that if you just build your game in a way that all of these pieces suit each other, then it's not about any one of those individual pieces being the right call. It's about the collective product being the right call. And I think Claire showcased that turn-based can work for your game if it works for your game. And that's the part that I think people need to focus on.
Yeah, I think actually you're entirely right. And I think actually you really hit the nail on the head with the all these games belong. You know, we want to live in a world where you have Clair Obscur, and you have Final Fantasy Rebirth, and you have Spider-Man, and you have Dragon Quest, which has a much more sort of traditional version of turn-based combat, and we want a world with Doom. We want all of these games to be out there, and we don't want any developer thinking, well, I can't make a game like that anymore. And hopefully, yeah, Claire has played a role in that, in just reminding people, no, there's still an audience for this, in the way that something like XCOM did in the early 2012s, when you suddenly start to have this series of then similar games coming up afterwards. And hopefully we can just get through that period of the clones and the copycats and come out the other side with a gaming industry that recognizes there is still an audience for this. There are still people who want this, but we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
We just know that we can.
Back when Claire was coming out, I had known about it for a while, and I shared it with Com in a DM. Com had never heard of it. And I'm like, Com, I know these are the type of games.
It's French.
Yeah. I know these are the type of games that you guys like, the JRPG style and things like that, which is not my thing. But I was actually genuinely excited about it, because the one thing I focused on for Com was like, it's turn-based, but with real-time aspects to it. The parrying system and the jump system and whatever. And I think your first response was like, huh? What are you talking about? Yeah.
It definitely was.
Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't describe it well enough. I was just like, no. There's like real-time elements like parrying and things like that with it. And otherwise, if it didn't have those, I would never have played the game, because it's just not my thing. I would have looked into it. I would have watched videos and stuff, but it wouldn't have been my thing. So I would have missed out on the story of it. But I think it wasn't just turn-based. They added that little bit that really got people like me, who don't thrive on action, but I love parrying. And so you add that with everything else, I was like, I'm in. I'm good.
The interesting thing to me as well is the way that it's framed, though. And I find it interesting if you watch online discourse about this. It's very fascinating. When there's games that we don't like, for example, we'll refer to the yellow paint on the walls as a bad thing. But in Clair Obscur, it gets a pass with the climbing things put on the wall. That's fine. And when we talk about the parrying and the dodging windows, which I love, by the way, I think it's wonderful combat. You could frame that as QuickTime events if you wanted to. And then we could just talk about why are there QuickTime events in every single damn fight that I'm trying to get by. I think it's a Clair Obscur stands as an evidence that all of these things that sometimes we say we don't like in games, actually pretty much everything can always work if, in Gamers Advocate tradition, you just do it well.
Exactly. That is exactly it with Claire. Claire is one of those things where if you build your game in a way that each of the elements suits what you're trying to accomplish, it doesn't matter what you choose. It matters how well you execute it. And Claire could have been a dynamic real-time combat system and still been a great game, but they chose turn-based, and then they chose to make it a little more engaging than traditional turn-based, and they just executed very well on what they were doing. And that's, I think, the big takeaway from this, or what I think should be the big takeaway from this, is there's nothing that's telling you exactly how to build a game, and there's nothing that's telling you how you shouldn't build a game. So experiment with your development and figure out what works. And Claire just found so many different things that work. That's what that's what developers moving forward should take away from this experience, is if you want to make a choice, you have to invest in that choice to make it work. There's nothing that tells you you made the wrong choice immediately, but if you don't invest, you don't put the quality behind the choice you've made, then it's going to fall apart.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Moving on to the next categories, by the way, can I, as an off-video side note, from my perspective, can we not do fighting game and family game?
Well,
because I have no experience of them.
When I looked into it, and I could be wrong because Banana may have looked into it more than I did, but when I briefly looked at the fighting one, they're all games that are just remasters and remakes, and they're not. There's nothing new here.
Every fighting game this year is a collection of previous fighting games. So I fully support moving past that category.
Perfect. Family, I've got no problem with. I just haven't played these games. That's it.
That's fair. I personally voted for Mario Kart World because
Mario Kart World. Yeah.
I feel like that is almost the definitive family game.
Yeah.
I thought so too, but the family for me, I only said Split Fiction because it seemed like it was an easy game to get into.
That's only if your family has 2 people. That's horseshit.
Yeah. Well, even if you did like co-op, I mean, it's just a matter of like, I don't think it was very hard to kind of understand what was going on. It's not the easiest type of structure of a game design to say, okay, well, you do this and you do this, but I think they kind of integrated that really well.
Split Fiction did what they were trying to do very well. I think what they were trying to do was make It Takes Two again.
It Takes Two.
That was the feeling I had. Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah. So while they did a good job and it's a game I really want to play with somebody, I just wasn't that excited about it because it's the continuation of a game I've already played with somebody. And now, in this category, as far as family, it is a 2-player game. There is no way to make it anything more than a 2-player game. Yeah, so I don't think it's the best family game.
Family game is essentially party game, and a 2-person party is fucking tragic.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. Some of us don't have more than one person to play a game with.
That's tragic too. Play with you?
Well, that's one.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, family game, party game, we 3 could play Night Rain.
That's true. We could fail at Night Rain.
I still have no bosses beating that game. Sorry, moving on.
I don't even have it yet.
Next category, Best Sim Strategy.
So our next category is Best Sim Strategy. Best game focused on real-time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. The nominees are Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, Jurassic World Evolution 3, Sid Meier's Civilization 7, Tempest Rising, The Alters, and 2 Point Museum.
Well, I'm going to jump in very quickly because I know Legion's going to have quite a bit to say on this, and say that my choice is not in the list. My choice would have been the game News Tower, which I would recommend to anyone who's a connoisseur. And from this list, I think...
A connoisseur of what?
Wonderful games. And I think from this list, I would take 2 Point Museum, and it's mainly winning from a lack of being impressed by the rest. There's one game in here which is supposed to be a wonderful, wonderful game, but I'm not up for remakes if they're this straightforward a remake being in the category. And
Yeah.
Sid Meier's Civilization, I think, hasn't had the time to take hold yet. Jurassic World Evolution 3 isn't doing anything for me. Jurassic World Evolution 2 didn't do. As for the rest,
Yeah. So I think I'll just jump in and address what people who are familiar with me or the previous episodes of the podcast might think. I don't think Final Fantasy Tactics belongs here. I am 100% on board with Com. I don't think Final Fantasy Tactics is a new game. I think if this were going to win an award, it should have won 28 years ago, and we have moved on. That being said, I love Tactics. I love what they did with the remake. I think it is a great remake. It's a remake. It's not a new game. We should not be awarding what was fundamentally released 30 years ago. I'm happy that people now have the chance to play a game that they probably would have missed out on, but I don't think it belongs in an think it belongs in an award show for anything other than remakes. And I couldn't vote for it for this category. I also voted for 2 Point Museum because as far as simulation goes, I think that the 2 Point games have always been very fun, very engaging. And I think they continued with 2 Point Museum. I think it is fundamentally a reskin of games they've already done, but there are alternative mechanics. There are changes in that game that I think have pushed it into this sufficiently different category that I can say it's a fun new game. They are continuing with a pattern that has worked, and they've made it engaging in a way that I see a difference between 2 Point Campus and 2 Point Hospital and 2 Point Museum, where I'm not going to say they're the exact same thing. There's a lot of similarity, but I'm happy to have all three of them in my library instead of just one.
That's a nice way of thinking about it. I think Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evilist Chronicles, if you own that, you don't really have a reason to go back and buy the original. Not really. If I can use my classic remake example, if you buy Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, you still have plenty of reason to go back and buy the original as well, because they've essentially evolved an entirely new kind of game. This you don't, and that might be a nice way of thinking about actually what's a remake, what's a reboot, what's a remaster for award show purposes, is when you bought the new one, is there a reason to go back and get the old one? In the same way that Mass Effect Legendary Edition should never be up for these awards, despite how incredible it is, because if you've got that, you've kind of got the original too. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way of looking at it. We completely agree on Final Fantasy Tactics, and 2 Point Museum just felt for me like the only natural option. So Legion, let me get the stand, the megaphone for you. What do you think about this category?
I chose Final Fantasy Tactics out of spite because I hate every single one of these options here. I think 2 Point might be the closest to the definition, but I'm very familiar with Frontier with Jurassic Park 3. It's not the best game that they've put out even this year. I think Planet Coaster 2 is better. I think Anno, the newest one with Pax Romana, that's the best one. That's the best one this year. Easy. Slam dunk. That's not on here. I do think that News Tower game is amazing. I've had it since early access. It's a phenomenal game. I think the reviews are outstandingly positive for it at the moment. It's a great game. Yeah, they 3 strikes, 4 strikes, 5 strikes. They whiffed on this one. I don't know if they even understand their own definition of this game, because like I said, I do think 2 Point does kind of meet it, but it's definitely not the best in show for this type of category. It's quirky, it's fun. I have 100 hours in playing 2 Point Museum. I do simulation games. It's just a weakness of mine, you know. And I do appreciate that they do seasonal things that are for free. Their DLCs and stuff. Now they're going into zoo stuff. Now it's a museum, but they're actually adding the zoo features now, which is kind of weird. It's a DLC that they just put out, but I'd always said in the past, at least they were focused. You could look at campus, you could look at museum, and what was the hospital, that they're actually still focused on what they did. Is still, that was the central theme. They didn't really branch out. But now with this 2 Point Museum going into zoo features, I don't know. We'll see. Because you could always already have aquariums in the 2 Point Museum. Now it's like, okay, I'm going to have aquariums in sea lions. I don't know. Kind of weird. But yeah, I don't know. I chose Final Fantasy Tactics just purely out of spite.
Take a moment to emotionally recover from the fact that you picked my favorite game of all time out of spite.
Everyone, moment of silence in the chat.
It's literally my background.
I bet you it wins.
I would be disappointed if it wins. I do stand by everything I said. I don't think it belongs in consideration for any game any category this year beyond best remaster.
Yeah, but which I think we said before would be a perfectly fine category to make, best remaster, because there is an achievement in that, and I think there is something to recognize in doing a capable remaster. It's just doesn't.
There's
feel
so much
right.
already built for you that comparing it to a brand new game feels wrong.
Yeah, the Beatles get to win awards in the 60s. They don't get to win awards when you put out remasters in the 2010s or whatever. They just don't get to. That's just not the way it works. Even though it's probably the best song that came out that year. Moving on. So, this is a category that I quite like. I don't know how we all feel about it, but this is best sports/racing. For the best traditional and non-traditional sports and racing game. And the nominees are EA Sports FC 26, F1 25, Mario Kart World, Rematch, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds.
Well, since American Trucker is not on here.
Right?
That's not racing. That's just driving.
This is when Legion plays it.
POV.
Online World of Trucks mode.
PvP.
Peanuts, very peanuts.
Yeah.
Demolition Derby. I mean, American Truck Simulator.
Yeah. Mario Kart. I went with that one. It's just the only one I really know. So, I mean, I know the other ones. I just, it seemed like the obvious one for me, but.
So this was actually surprisingly tough. I'm not a huge racing game fan. And I don't see anything special about EA Sports FC 26 or F1 25. I think both of those are very much the type of game you expect to be released. I don't think there's anything truly exceptional in those. Rematch was a very interesting game. I think that was something very fun and unique that came out this year. And I think they did a great job with that. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is a surprisingly good Sonic game. In a game series where most of them suck, they did something really fun. And it's nonsense because Sonic is the fastest thing alive. So he gets in a car to race his friends. And I think that's actually the explanation they've gone with, is if he weren't in a car, he'd win every time. So let's put them all in cars, making it an even playing field. So like, I kind of get it. And it's so funny that like the one thing Sonic seems to have done very well is a racing game, which doesn't fit Sonic at all. And then Mario Kart World is Mario Kart. Mario Kart has been wonderful for decades. But for me, I think just because of the innovation, I voted for Rematch. I think they did something new with a sports game, which is tough to do. We've talked about sports already having that framework, that infrastructure that you're building off of, and Rematch took that and made something I'd never seen before. And I think that's exceptional.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the strongest categories. Genuinely, I think these are mostly very, very good games. The only weakness that I thought was F1 25, which I thought is a very competent game in the way that you'd expect F1 games to be, but it didn't do much beyond that. And I ended up tied between Mario Kart World and Rematch, and I went for Rematch as well. I think there's something to be said for gaming your games. And EA Sports FC 26, which is very much a legitimate simulation of football, you play. I mean, it's a FIFA game, essentially. You play, but it's based in realism, it's based in understanding the game, it's based in tactics, etc. Rematch, there's something about the ease of play of the game the quickness of it, which reminded me a lot of games like Rocket League, and then just the not having to overthink it. If I want to try and break this guy's leg, I'm going to try and break him. Yeah, nothing's going to happen. I'm either going to hit or I'm going to miss. No one's getting a red card. No one's getting yellow. No substitutions. He's going to get up in 3 seconds, and we're going to keep on playing. It's a perfect, quick sports game. I voted for rematch. I voted for rematch.
I also feel like my bias entered in, and I can't vote for anything that has EA in the title.
Doesn't hurt to have that in the title. No, wait, sorry. It doesn't hurt your chances of not being voted for by us to have that in the title.
Yeah.
Oh, there must be a better way to do that sentence.
There's dozens of better ways.
I just saw Rocket League when I saw Rematch, and I was like, yeah, it's a reskin.
Yeah, not a bad thing.
No, it is,
yeah. But it's also innovative.
Yeah.
So Rocket League was innovative when it was released. Rematch took that and made something a little bit different, a little bit more familiar in the realism of a football game. But it's also fun in a way that EA is not. Yeah. Or FIFA games have not been. And I don't mean that FIFA games aren't fun. I just mean they are a very different style of game than Rematch, but you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I love FIFA games. So my childhood is FIFA games and Final Fantasy. There's nothing else in there. And Metal Gear Solid once in a while. But on the whole, that's it. I love them. But it's a different kind of game. And it's something we've talked about before in the gamification of sports games, in the way that the best rugby game is Mario, Sonic, Rugby Sevens. It's just the best rugby game because they take a lot of what makes the game fun, distill it down to where you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to worry about offside in Rematch. If someone's playing FIFA for the first time and doesn't understand football, you have to explain how offside works. You just have to. You don't need to do that in Rematch. You can just play. And if you're offside half the time, well, the only consequence is your team has like a player less. There are these very real, understandable consequences of having your player drastically out of position like that, which just makes it easy to play, easy to understand, easy to pick up. And it's reasonably priced too. Well done, Rematch.
Yeah. Innovation. Remove the grass. It's like watching grass grow with soccer players on it.
The next category is Best Multiplayer, and the options are Ark Raiders, Battlefield 6, Elden Ring Night Rain, Peak, and Split Fiction. Legion, what do you have?
So I don't play any of these games. I've seen every single one of them, though. And from casual observation and just my own interest in the game, the only game that people get into, and they get into it more and more and more, it's kind of like a rabbit hole, is Ark Raiders. Everybody seems to really, once they're in that one, they really want to just play more and more and more. It's like it becomes a habit for them to want to play more. I didn't see that with any of these other No, they're all good games, every single one of them. It's just that one is kind of special in how it kind of got to some people. Because for me, I'm a single player person. I'd rather just do this as a PvE only option. If that was an option, I'd already have Ark Raiders. But I don't like that one little bit. But again, so it's not for me, so that's fine. But everybody that I saw play it, even people who were focused on the PvE, said, yeah, there's the PvP, but for the most part, if you're single player, not playing as a team, you can get a lot of interactions that are friendly more so than not. I mean, it's just a risk that you have based on the scenario and how the game is designed. But for the most part, it's not a ton of ganking that occurs where you would expect a PvP type game to have been there. And so it really surprised me that it didn't follow the MO of the traditional multiplayer PvP type games. So I just went with Ark Raiders. Seemed like an obvious choice for me.
I hate Ark Raiders. I don't.
Crappy Helldivers.
I don't think of it as an assessment of quality. It's just Ark Raiders is very much not for me. I genuinely dislike PvPvE. I think those games do not appeal to me at all. And it's not, again, it's not an assessment of quality of those games. Ark Raiders does it very well, and I enjoy watching people who enjoy Ark Raiders play it. It's just not for me. But I do think, yeah, Legion's right. It is almost addictive to certain people. I've seen people who are like, I'll try out Arc Raiders, and now that's the only thing they play, and I haven't spoken to them in months.
Yeah.
But for me, I thought this was a surprising category. There are a lot of very fun games on this list, and a lot of very well done games. One I am a little concerned will rapidly drop off in the near future, and that's Peak. And I think Com has mentioned similar games in this vein, things like Lethal Company, Repo, that multiplayer slop, where it's very popular for a few months and then it seems to completely disappear. And I feel like Peak is on that path. That being said, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time playing that game. I think it's very well done. I just don't know how you can keep making it fresh. I think that is the big challenge for that game, and unfortunately, the game is structured in a way where you need to do that. So I love Peak, but I couldn't vote for it in this category. I ended up voting for Elden Ring Night Reign because I think they did a really good job of taking an established game and translating it to purely multiplayer and not relying too heavily on what they had already done with Elden Ring, which sounds ridiculous because Elden Ring Night Reign is built heavily off of what they did in Elden Ring. But it's not the exact same gameplay, and it's definitely not the same multiplayer mechanics. And that's why it belongs in this category. Because I don't think Elden Ring Night Reign is tremendously imaginative across the board, but I think the way they introduced multiplayer to that game is exceptional. And I think that's why it won this category for me.
Yeah, and I think for me, moving on from the previous category, which I thought was one of the strongest, I think this might actually, again, be one of the weakest categories across the board. There's not many games here that I think are truly remarkable. Arc Raiders isn't my thing at all. Battlefield 6, actually, one of the better, I thought, but not a remarkable game. It's going to be a game that gets forgotten about sooner rather than later. Peak, I think, belongs in that field of multi-garbage or multiplayer slop. I can't really see it lasting more than a few months. If it does, I'll be very glad for them, good for them, but I can't see it. Ended up going for Elden Ring Night Reign and being a bit disappointed that there wasn't something better I could choose. It's a really good game. It's really fun, but it's not that interesting. It's not that creative. So it's a category that I feel let me down a little bit. I wish there was something more valuable here I could vote for, like Rematch.
Do you think the fact that Split Fiction is co-op with one other person hurts it in this category?
Yeah, in the same way that I think Night Reign being co-op with... did they change it now that you can do two as well, I think? I remember they were talking about it for a while, but it was a one-player game or a three-player game, which is an absurd choice. At every step of the way, they had to make that choice. And no matter how much you try and jury-rig in the logic behind it and the why you did it and what lore implications that has, in the end, you've made a three-person game or a one-person game. Multiplayer, you need to have options that people can do this as ones, as twos, as fours. And if we go beyond four, great. But 1, 2, 3, 4, to me, you need to have that in there. So yeah, disappointing category this year.
It is funny. I didn't think of it until you said it, but I'd probably vote for Rematch if it were nominated in this category.
Yeah, me too.
So this will round out our discussion. And the last category is Most Anticipated Game, recognizing an announced game that has demonstrably illustrated potential to push the gaming medium forward. And the nominees are 007 First Light, Grand Theft Auto 6, Marvel's Wolverine, Resident Evil Requiem, and The Witcher 4.
So I'm going to be a bit of a douche here, and I'm going to say that if we go by their definition, it's GTA 6. But that's not my definition for it. This is the game that I'm most anticipating, the one that I most want to play. And this is why, for me, it's Marvel's Wolverine. I think Insomniac Games, their superhero stuff is incredible. Spider-Man 2, which I'm playing right now, and Spider-Man 1 are some of my very favorite games. And I feel you can trust them with superhero games. And the little trailers that they've shown that really makes this game feel like a Wolverine game, when you had the blood in the trailer, the violence in it, trusting them to respect the source material and to build a game that's just going to be fun. This will be the one of those games that I will definitely play. I will probably play 007. I will probably play The Witcher 4. I'm definitely going to play Wolverine.
I definitely think my spiteful nature kicked in this category, and seeing Grand Theft Auto 6 in here, I was just like, nope, that's definitely not it. I am so fucking tired of that we got this before Grand Theft Auto 6 joke. It's so worn out. Shut the fuck up. And then my actual selection feels just as spiteful, because I picked The Witcher 4, because fuck you, everyone who hated on that game before knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
Ciri looks old in this game. What happened to her?
It happens, bro. Look at us compared to when we started the podcast. Not banana.
It is funny because like I don't even like The Witcher 1, but I'm very excited about The Witcher 4. I am also excited about Resident Evil Requiem, just because I'm always excited about Resident Evil games. I am curious to see Marvel's Wolverine. I don't know if it's really in my wheelhouse as far as the games I like to play. I had no idea 007 First Light was coming out. That's just my ignorance. That's not on that game at all. That's on me. I am curious to see what it looks like. Have
you played the modern Hitman games?
Yes.
It looks like they're basically doing that, but you're James Bond. It's perfect. Like that's wonderful. Wonderful.
It's but like a younger James Bond too. Like not a seasoned one, I think.
Sean Connery?
Yeah. No Sean Connery, yeah. A young Sean Connery.
Oh, take us back.
I went Witcher 4. Witcher 4 is here's the thing about CD Projekt. I'm a big CD Projekt fan. But see, Witcher 2 was better than Witcher 1. Witcher 3 was better than Witcher 2. See,
everything was better than Witcher 1.
Cyberpunk was better than Witcher 3. They only get better, and so Phantom Liberty was even better than as a base game than Cyberpunk. But of course you had to have it because it just ties into the story. Obviously.
Was Cyberpunk better than Witcher 3?
Yeah. Infinitely.
Ew.
It's paced better. It's more focused with the powers that you have. The storytelling is better.
There's more nudity.
Yeah, a lot more.
It's got more leg room for your legs. Yeah, carry on.
Plus, it's it's not their own IP. Well, it's their IP now, but I mean, there was a little bit more liberty to be able to kind of take the story and stuff. So they took a lot of liberties with The Witcher, of course, but there was already a scene, a backdrop, a whole like narrative of finding Ciri and things. So they had to go that direction. With Cyberpunk, they had all the imagination in the world they could have thrown at it. So I think so, yeah. But
to be real, by the way, I prefer Cyberpunk to The Witcher 3. I think it's a better game.
But I think this one coming out, and this is what I found out recently too, and it's I'm not trying to go off tangent or anything, but I'm looking forward to it because it should give us a little bit more information about CD Projekt and how they're going to be releasing games in the future. The books say when they do their press releases for their financials and stuff, they're kind of indicating that the way that they're streamlining these games now is that they're expecting to have not only the remaster for Witcher 1, 2, and 3 to come all out together before Witcher 4 here, not in the distant future, but then actually have a trilogy for The Witcher 4, 5, 6 to follow suit shortly after. And we're also looking at the next Cyberpunk game too. So if we see The Witcher 4 come out sooner than we expect, like within a year and a half, maybe 2 years, we could see a whole line of CD Projekt games come out. And that's kind of exciting, as long as they're done well, of course. We don't want them to rush this. But apparently they're on this method now because of their Unreal Engine and being able to solidify their method of, because they were using the Red Engine and they were still figuring that out, and then said, hey, look, we've abandoned that. Now we know the stories we want to tell. Now we have the method to do that. And apparently they have their own engine going for that.
I think we've hit all the categories. but I'm curious because there's a category that isn't listed on the website, but I think it's something that people should discuss. So I wanted to ask, is there something you hope they announce at the Game Awards? Because we all know that's what the Game Awards is for. We know that the Game Awards themselves are largely a secondary feature. Look at the way they speed through some of these more minor announcements where they'll say best RPG was X, best action was Y, best action adventure was Z. Now for the next 7 minutes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the award show is just a cover for the trailers and all the publishing stuff. Absolutely.
And as long as we know that, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're hoping they're going to announce?
Final Fantasy Tactics Part 2.
Right. I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I was going to make the same joke, but it's a joke. I don't know that story needs a continuation. I don't even know how you continue that story. The way it ends is so final that there's nothing else beyond a new story in the same world, which is what Final Fantasy 12 was. So I, again, don't know that we need to return to that. Yeah, for me, I'm curious to see what Larian's next project is. I don't know if we will see that this early, but I am curious to see if they have any announcements. Icewind Dale 3, Legion and I have talked about. I think that would be really cool because Larian would be one of the few gaming industry beings I would trust to finally make a good Icewind Dale game.
Yeah, because it was never a BioWare game. It was always Black Owl, and that's that whole interplay group and stuff, and it was just never done right. And it's a great background. The music's phenomenal. The art's phenomenal. It's the gameplay.
The gameplay is fundamentally the same thing as Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but there's no story.
Yeah, no story.
There's no reason for me to care.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of make up your own story and just kind of play through it. Yeah. But I will say, if I'm being serious, I don't see it happening, but I think it would really put to bed a lot of concern and fear that we have if they say anything about Mass Effect 4. Mm. BioWare says Mass Effect still continuing. Here's like a preview. Here's something, anything.
The next Dragon Age game.
I'd respect that. That'd be a baller move.
I would love to see that. Oh, I would be so proud of them if they're like, hey, you know how we released Veilguard? You guys were a bunch of pricks about it? We're doing that again.
It's Veilguard 2, and it's turn-based.
And it's just like a spotlight and Tosh shows up.
Oh, yes, the Tosh Chronicles. Yes, let's do this. It's not DLC, it's mainline, all right? And we call it Mass Effect 4 just to really confuse people. So I'm going to go with the obvious one is I'm really hoping for the next Final Fantasy announcement. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm really hoping whether that be the final part of the remake series or whether that be Final Fantasy 17. I am more than ready for that. One that I wondered if it might pop up, it's a bit of a dark horse, but Persona 6. It's been a long, long time since we've heard anything about Persona, and I feel like there's a possibility that could come up. I really want something new from Software, but I feel as though with Night Rain being relatively recent, Elden Ring not that long before with Shadow of the Erdtree, it might be a bit too soon in the cycle, especially if they're doing a new IP. And the one I'm really actually hoping for is God of War. Give me something with God of War. Where is this series actually going?
Re-release the originals in a remaster or something. I play the hell out of that.
Screw that. Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection Part 2. Give me that. I want that.
It's
God of War Legendary Edition. I'm on board. Go for it.
Dragon Age.
God of War Veilguard.
Yeah, God of War. But Kratos is not Kratos. It's Tosh.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll see it, but maybe that new Kojima horror game. I will play the hell out of that when it comes out.
The episodic one with Mike Flanagan and the others. Yes. More of that would be fascinating.
I'll play the hell out of that
PTSD.
one. Yeah.
Fuck you. That's clever. I'm funny.
It's really good. Yeah. That would be a very, very him thing to name it. It wouldn't get past the fucking lawyers, would it? Never.
Probably not.
Oh, but it's so good. Oh, it's such a letdown. Matt, whatever it is now, it's going to be so disappointing. No. Oh. Wrap it up, Legion.
Yes. I've just ruined a game that hasn't even been announced for Colin. Well, I guess on that note, everybody go the fuck home.
Remember when we were happy?
We thank everybody for being here. If you agree with me and Banana that Claire Obscure should be the game of the year, then put the like in the comments there and tell Com what you really think of his opinion and his choice of games.
I was really nice about Claire Obscure like the whole time. The whole time. Ben Starr
Also,
got it.
If you enjoyed the video, like the video. If you disagreed with us, put a comment explaining why we're wrong or what it was you disagreed with. But like, you don't have to agree with us to have enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found a way to enjoy it and can still be like, yeah, I don't think that's going to win.
Legion, have you not been paying attention? Rage bait is the key.
If you don't like the video, put a dislike. I don't care.
If you disagreed with
thumbs down,
any one of the categories that we've discussed, like the video anyway, because fuck you.
Yeah, nerds. Yeah, we got him, boys.
Yeah. Checkmate. YouTube, push this to everyone.
Tell us in the comments. Be sure to @Banana if you want to engage in any long discussions.
By the way, bold of us to assume anyone's going to get to the end of this 2-hour video before getting insulted.
I'm going to start with the end.
Yeah, we started with the Game of the Year category. People are going to watch that and just immediately check out.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to know what y'all picked. Game of the Year. That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. None of this is usable.
It's all usable. This is very much either none of it goes in or all of it goes in.
I was embarrassed about mispronouncing Woodkid. Now, that's a long distant memory.
Woodkid, play us out.
Check you guys later. Bye-bye.